Hello, Bravo bosses, and welcome to the Bravo Investigator Podcast with me, your host, Dana. Happy Monday, and I'm sorry that this episode is a bit late today, you guys. This is actually a long weekend in Canada, and I normally record this episode on Sundays, but I'm recording this on Monday because I wanted to make sure to catch Craig on the Tamron Hall show and to be able to get this to you. So you're getting this episode late on Mondays, audio. You can get it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And then the video version of this episode may not be out till Tuesday on YouTube, on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. So you'll definitely get the episode audio today on Monday. The YouTube version may not be out till tomorrow on Tuesday. But again, hello and welcome. Happy to be here. Today we are doing our pop culture pulse check. So today's topics are going to be the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, the Kardashians, the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, The Bachelor, Southern Charm, and Southern Hospitality. I also want to let you guys know there's a trigger warning for this episode, as there will be discussions of suicide and sexual abuse. For my new listeners, I wanted to take a second to reintroduce myself and just tell you a little bit about what you can expect from the show going forward. So, hello, I am Dana. I live in Toronto and I love Bravo. On Mondays, we do a pop culture pulse check episode, and what that means is I am giving you all the news from your reality TV space. From Bravo to The Bachelor to The Kardashians to Love is Blind, I'm giving you all of your reality TV news. Those episodes are audio and video. Audio meaning you can download them wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever, and video you can watch on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. Then on Saturdays, I give you mini recaps of your favorite Bravo shows. Those episodes are audio only. Right now, I'm doing The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Summer House, Southern Charm, and Southern Hospitality. And then once a month, I am doing a limited series called Be True Hollywood Story. And that is basically telling you the story of your favorite Bravo lebs from birth to scandal to stardom and everything in between. And those episodes are audio only as well. And then, of course, I will have a smattering of bonus episodes here and there where I will be doing interviews with some of your favorite Bravo lebs and other guests as well, or just, watching different kinds of shows and doing special bonus episodes on that. And I also wanted to let you guys know that with the rebrand, so this is now the Bravo Investigator Podcast. No more I Take Bravo Very Seriously. So you can check out my rebranded merch on hurrdatmedia.com. So there's a lot of cool new hats, sweatshirts, mugs, and stuff like that that say the Bravo Investigator. They're really, really good quality, so I would definitely check them out if I were you. And that is all I wanted to let you guys know before we get into the show, except please follow me on Instagram and TikTok at the Bravo Investigator, and let's get into it. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a great week. I had a pretty good week. I always have to think about it in terms of trying to remember what I did. But on Wednesdays, I go into the office. It's like the one day a week I go into office. Every other day is work from home. And I normally send my dog to daycare, but I really wanted to try her at home by herself, which I've never done before. So I had one of those dog cameras set up, and she just looks so depressed. It really actually made me upset. I went home at lunch, obviously, to take her out. But oh my God, I couldn't handle it. She was just sitting at the front door for the first 4 hours of the day, and then the last 4 hours of the day. It made me so sad for her. So I definitely want to get her a little dog friend, which I know I've been talking about for a while, but when I was between jobs, it just didn't feel like the right time. So I'm definitely looking again, and I think I might be getting a terrier chihuahua mix. I definitely want a breed that's small like her and has a similar, disposition, as my dog Judy, who's a Pomeranian, but she does have a collapsed trachea, so I sort of have to be careful about how much energy she's exerting. At the same time, I kind of feel like she's not getting enough exercise, just chilling at home with me all day. I do work from home, but she's always felt bored. She always seems like she's so bored out of her mind just being at home with me. So I do want to get her a little friend. That is my goal. So it's something I'm looking into. But I don't want to talk about myself too much because apparently some listeners find that very annoying. So I'm sorry. I've started to notice that the more people listen to this podcast, the more criticism I get, which I'm not gonna lie, it sucks. It hurts sometimes. But what I've noticed is that I can just block out the noise. I'm really, really good at ignoring information. I've just decided in my life now, in all regards, I'm just gonna say whatever I think and then just ignore responses. You know how they always say, if you wanted to write a letter to your ex-boyfriend or there's something you want to say to your ex-boyfriend, write it down and then burn the letter, right? And If people are going to say things about me, I'm just not even going to notice it. I am just going to avert my eyes to it. I'm not reading comments anymore. I'm not doing any of that because it just doesn't serve me. It's just not fulfilling in any sort of way to receive, criticism from people. So my podcast is mine. It's for me. I'm going to say all the things that I want to say. And if people don't like it, I'm actually really not going to know about it because I'm not going to look at the comments. So for those of you who are here because they enjoy my takes, thank you for being here. And if you want to chat with me about things that you find interesting and entertaining, definitely reach out. I want to chat with you if you guys want to have conversations about things that are going on in the Bravo sphere. I definitely want to do that. But if they're criticisms, I'm just not going to look at it. That's just sort of how I'm going to fly going forward. But let's get into our tea, and we will start with the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So, unfortunately, we got some really, really sad news about Teddi Mellencamp. So, she posted last week that for the last several weeks, I've been dealing with severe and debilitating headaches. Yesterday, the pain was unbearable and required hospitalization. After a CT scan and MRI, doctors found multiple tumors on my brain, which they believe have been growing for at least 6 months. Wow. Two of the tumors will be surgically removed today. The remaining smaller tumors will be dealt with via radiation at a later date. I am blessed to be surrounded by my children, family, friends, doctors, nurses, and surgeons who are doing everything possible to get me back into better health. Thank you to everyone who has reached out and to everyone who has supported me along this journey. And then Edwin actually ended up giving an update last week. So he said, so many people are asking for updates. All I will say right now is surgery went well. That said, I've never seen Teddi Mellencamp in so much pain. She's finally getting some much needed rest. And I know that she is so grateful for the outpouring of love. So obviously that is super devastating. I'm sort of hearing on the back end that it's really severe and it's really not going well. So prayers to Teddi and her family. I think it's kind of amazing that Edwin is here for her and supporting her during this time. I mean, you really never know someone until you go through your worst times. And so I think it's really special that she has so much support, especially in her ex-husband and the father of her children during a time where, this is really scary for the entire family. And the kids must be going through so much after first the divorce and now this. So, I'm really feeling for them. In other Teddy news, which is really, really bad timing, she's being sued by her former housekeeper. So I saw this article on TMZ and it says Teddi Mellencamp is getting sympathy from lots of folks as a result of her brain tumors, but she's still getting dragged to court by a former housekeeper who says the reality TV star is a bona fide racist. The former Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star is being sued by a woman named Julia Umana, who claims she worked as a live-in nanny and housekeeper for Teddi. Umana claims Teddi treated her more poorly than any other celebrity boss. In the lawsuit obtained by TMZ, Umana claims Teddi made her employment a living hell by abusing power, shorting paychecks, creating a hostile work environment, and engaging in racial discrimination and harassment. Umana claims Teddi worked her to the bone and treated her worse than any other household helpers who were white. She says Teddi accused her of stealing and committing theft even though there were cameras in the house and never did the same to the white blonde employee. An immigrant from El Salvador, Umana claims Teddi even mocked her for speaking Spanish and spoke towards her in a nasty tone, and that she never saw Teddi use with white workers. Umana claims that she finally had enough and told Teddi she was going to resign, but she says Teddi pressured her to work three 12-hour shifts only to be paid $325. She claims she complained about the pay and was unceremoniously fired. The woman claims she was wrongfully terminated and says Teddi owes her unpaid wages and she's going after Mellencamp for more than $2 million in wages. We reached out to Teddi's camp and they've had no comment. I mean, the timing is just, wild. I don't really know what to say about that. I mean, those are very harsh allegations. Claims of racism are very serious, obviously, and they're not to be taken lightly, and they're also very difficult to prove. So it's very interesting how she's saying that she's being treated in ways that are differently than white coworkers. And I actually did some similar type of work. I worked in HR for like Toronto's like train company, and I was dealing with sexual harassment and regular harassment and workplace discrimination. Like, so basically just any of the employees who worked for the train company who had complaints about discrimination and harassment. And people who would come forward with discrimination complaints, especially racialized ones, they were very difficult to prove. I'm not saying they're not real. Like that was sort of the issue when I had this job. I was like, wait a minute, but how are they supposed to prove this? And that's what happens in investigations a lot of times, where if there isn't evidence of something, it sort of goes away. And when it comes to racism, to prove that one person was treated differently than another because of their race, to prove the correlation is very, very difficult. Now, given that Teddi is in the hospital and, who knows what the outcome is going to be, I don't know if this woman is then going to go after Teddy's family or what's going to come of it. But I mean, depends on how, and also it sort of depends on how quickly this moves forward. I mean, I guess I could see Teddy's family trying to settle this, even if they don't agree with any of it, just to make it all go away so that their family can like focus on trying to heal. That's what I'm gonna guess is gonna happen, which isn't gonna be a good look for Teddi because if you settle on something like this, it sort of implies like an admission of guilt. And it doesn't mean that necessarily. Like a lot of people settle just to make situations go away, like Shannon Bedore, because obviously it could be way more stressful and hard on you and your mental health and your everything health to go to court and to go through all of that. But it does have a certain connotation. So I don't know what's going to happen here. I hope whatever happens is resolved quickly for the sake of Teddy's family so that they can, focus on her health. But the timing. Okay, do you guys remember Annemarie? Probably not, because she was a little one season wonder from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She was the esophagus lady, remember? So her whole storyline was going on and on about Sutton's esophagus, and it's it's esophagusness. I don't even want to get into the backstory of this. You guys remember, it was such a shitty storyline that she did not come back for another season. But you may recall that she was a nurse anesthetist, and there was, I guess, some discrepancy about the difference between a nurse anesthetist and a doctor anesthesiologist. So Annemarie came out last week and said that she is suing the American Society of Anesthesiologists. This is just wild. So this is what she posted on Instagram. I have recently filed a lawsuit against the American Society of Anesthesiologists, ASA, because of their public smear campaign against me stemming from their IG post during my time as a cast member on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I continue to experience significant harm from their false and defamatory IG post about me. While I have not publicly disclosed my lawsuit, I am now aware of the ASA's decision to publicize on their website my lawsuit against them. Let me be clear, my lawsuit is solely about the ASA's malicious, false, targeted, and defamatory statements about me. I have always proudly, publicly, and consistently stated that I am a CRNA. I have never stated that I am an anesthesiologist or a medical doctor during my time on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or otherwise. This is not a debate over professional titles, despite the ASA's attempts to now mischaracterize it as such. This is about holding the ASA accountable for its shameful and blatant lies. I trust that the truth will come to light through the proper legal channels. Defamation has no place in healthcare. So I don't know if you remember this from, I guess, like a year ago, but the ASA, the American Society of Anesthesiologists, posted something on Instagram after, I guess, there was this discrepancy on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills as to what it is Annemarie does. And so they posted the difference between an anesthesiologist and a nurse anesthetist. And the caption says, "The Real Housewives know a fake. Anesthesiologists are medical doctors with more than 12 years of higher education and up to 16,000 hours of clinical training. Title misappropriation has no place in healthcare." Okay, fine. But like to sue them over this is like ridiculous. One, no one remembers you. Two, no one remembers this. Three, how is this hurting your career? Unless she was, or hurt you in any way, unless she was like fired from her job over this, that's one thing. But if she wasn't, then why are you bringing this up again? You're just reminding people that you are the one who really made it seem very confusing as to what your job is. So, I hate, like, the US is just so sue happy, I feel like. To sue someone over an Instagram post that didn't even name you, it didn't even name you. So, I just feel like this is just an abuse of the legal system. This is stupid. Go take care of your family. Go practice nurse anesthetism or whatever it is. And this is just absolutely ridiculous. I hope we never see this woman on TV again. Not about it. Okay, so Mauricio Umansky was in a ski accident over the weekend. There was an article on page 6 that says Mauricio Umansky was hospitalized with a broken clavicle after suffering a ski accident on Friday. The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star shared the news on Instagram while giving his followers a glimpse into his recovery journey. I feel so blessed to be taken care of by such amazing humans. Ski Patrol, paramedics, Aspen Hospital, you're the best. The realtor wrote atop a selfie he took while in his hospital bed. Let's get this surgery done so I can heal. Play hard sometimes, you get hurt, but the care here has been incredible, he said. He later shared a video of himself being carried off a snowy mountain by ski patrol soon after the accident. His arm was seen in a sling, but no major details about the accident were given. And then after his surgery, he posted something on Instagram that said, "Thank you to everyone who's reached out. I have felt so much love and support. I had surgery on my clavicle. It was a clean break, but it required a metal plate and 12 screws. Wow. I expect a speedy recovery. The doctors and nurses at Aspen Valley Hospital are the best. I was wearing a helmet, and that for sure saved me." So I'm going to say something crazy for a second. I am like the most, like, I never exercise, I never do any sport of any kind. And mostly because I hate it, also because I'm super lazy. But has anyone noticed that when you play sports, you often get hurt? And so, in my opinion, if you don't play sports and you don't do these crazy activities, you're gonna live longer. You're gonna live a better life. Look at me, I've never broken a single thing. I know, I hear how I sound. I hear how I sound. I'm sure he was having a fun time, and I'm sure sports are fun for some people, but like, I'm here living without any broken bones and any hurt of any kind because I never move. And maybe that will kill me in a different way. But I just sort of feel like sports are terrifying. Sports can be painful. Sports can cause a lot of harm. So when I see things like this, I'm like, if you just hadn't have done it, maybe you wouldn't have gotten hurt. You know, if you had just stayed on your couch all day like me. I realize how I sound. Skiing is probably fun to a lot of people, but to me, this doesn't seem worth it. My opinion. Okay. So Lisa Rinna has actually started a new podcast called Let's Not Talk About the Husband, I think is what it's called. And she disclosed on her podcast that, do you remember way back when, oh God, I don't even remember what season it was, but it was a party at Dorit's house for dinner, and everyone just sort of disappears from the table, and it's just Lisa Rinna and that some weird guy, I forget his name. And then at the next dinner that everybody had, Lisa Rinna asked Dorit, because it was a party at Dorit's house, did everybody go and do coke in your bathroom? And everybody goes, "Oh my God, what the hell are you talking about?" And Lisa has now confirmed that it was actually PK doing coke in the bathroom. And not surprising. I mean, I'm not saying given his current issues, I mean, he has an issue with alcohol, not necessarily drugs. But I don't know. I mean, here's what I've heard about LA. Cocaine is basically not even considered a drug there. It's so bizarre to me because where I'm from, that is a very, very serious drug. But apparently in LA, it's basically considered just like, a regular Wednesday afternoon. Everybody does coke. It's barely considered like a substance in that sense. So it's really not that big a deal to a lot of LA people, I guess. Um, it's still kind of funny. It's still just kind of funny that it's PK. And it's funny that Dorit and everyone had such a big reaction, considering it sort of ended up being true. I don't know. I'm curious if PK will respond to that. And if he does, I'm sure he'll be like, yeah, yeah, that was me. I was having a good time. So what? Right? Like, so what? So what at the end of the day? And then also in that regard, remember when Lisa Rinna was like freaking out at Kim Richards because Kim Richards had said, like, let's talk about the husband, which is where the name of this podcast came from. So Kathy Griffin on her podcast, you guys remember Kathy Griffin, red hair Kathy Griffin? So she said that she asked Lisa Rinna like maybe a long time ago what that was all about, and apparently it just came out recently. So the reason Lisa Rinna was so mad at Kim Richards for saying like let's talk about the husband, the rumor about the husband, meaning Harry Hamlin, was that he had sex with dogs or animals or something like that. Like that was the rumor. That just seems as silly to me as like the PK and the Coke of it all, because these are some of our most hilarious moments in Real Housewives of Beverly Hills history. And now to find out their origin and how silly where they come from, I mean, I'm just dying. Sex with dogs, that was the rumor. Let's not talk about the husband because the rumor is just so hilarious and ridiculous. Obviously, we know that Harry Hamlin is not having sex with dogs, has probably never had sex with dogs. I don't even to say probably. I could probably say with absolute assurance that Harry Hamlin has never had sex with a dog. So I wish that had actually come out in the moment. That would have been so, so funny. Okay, so Lisa Vanderpump's daughter Pandora has now given birth to her second child. Um, She posted a picture of him on Instagram and wrote, "Welcome to the pack, Grayson Bear. Daddy and I love you more than anything in the whole world. Teddi is already making the best big brother, and nothing could make me happier than seeing our two boys together finally, my little Valentine." And Stassi actually wrote, congratulations, I'm so happy for you guys. So congrats to Pandora and Jason. I like the name Grayson. So their kids are Teddi and Grayson, and those are pretty normal. But Grayson's middle name, like I said, is Bear, which is celebrity names these days, they sort of don't even faze me anymore. Like when somebody names their kid John now, I'm like, John, right? I'm like so much more used to the celebrity names than I am to like the normal conventional names. So I like that he has more so a normal conventional first name, but Bear is a middle name, especially when the other kid's name is Teddy, like Teddy and Bear. Teddy and Bear. But Bear reminds me of Alicia Silverstone's son because that's his name. And the only thing I remember about Alicia Silverstone and her son is that she used to, or I hope she used to, and doesn't still do this. Um, she used to like chew up his food for him and regurgitate it into his mouth like a mama bird. So when I think of the name Bear, that's sort of what I think of. But very cute, very happy for them, little family of four. And Lisa Vanderpump absolutely loves grandchildren, so this is for sure making her day. Okay, I just want to do a little bit of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills recap from last week because, like I said, I normally do mini recaps on the weekend, but because Summer House just had so much tea and so much going on with it, I decided on on Saturday to do a full recap of Summer House, and then I also talked about like Craig on Tamron Hall and what to expect from that. I also talked about Paige and the Dumois rumors, and I talked about Sierra and Lindsay on Watch What Happens Live. So because I didn't get into mini recaps, I just thought I would do a little bit of that today as part of our pop culture pulse check. So with the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, this is where I wanted to issue the trigger warning because last week's episode did involve Sutton's discussion of her father's suicide. And Sutton said that her dad had been suffering with chronic depression and was confused, and his treatment seemed very disjointed because he was on different kinds of medications over time. He never went to therapy. And it really reminded me of a friend of mine. Her friend actually ended up committing suicide. And this girl was someone who also really struggled with her mental health in a way where she couldn't get on the right combination of medications or therapy. I mean, she had tried so many different things and could never really get to a place where she was stable. And she also ended up committing suicide in the home where she lived with her roommates, meaning my friend found her and saw her. And that's obviously an extremely traumatic thing to see, to experience. Um, I think that the way Sutton talks about it in this episode is very interesting. She talks about it in a very stoic way. That could be because that's just sort of how her family is. You can see from her mother that she is very stoic and very, I mean, if you look at her mother, you could consider her cold. And I feel like every generation gets a little less cold. Like from my grandmother to my mother to me, I'm definitely way more of an emotional person who cares for other people than I was my grandmother, than I was my mother. And you definitely see a lot more emotion and caring from Sutton, but there is also sort of a hardness to her. And I think that comes from her mother, but I also think that comes from going through a trauma like this, especially a trauma where you probably didn't deal with it properly or appropriately or whatever that even means, because what is the right way to deal with your father's death? But it probably was even that much more difficult because in their family, they don't talk about it. That's what she says. She's like, I'm saying so much more here than I've ever said because we don't talk about this, which is so almost dangerous in a way to keep things like that really, really tucked in. Another thing I want to say about suicide, and this can be very triggering for some people, but this is just something that I want to say from my perspective and my experience. Um, Suicidal ideation is something that I struggled with for a very, very long time. I want to say from the time I was 16 up until not that long ago. I have also struggled to get on the right medications and therapy, and I think that I'm finally in that great place now. One thing that I want to say about the idea of suicide and it being selfish, because it's something that a lot of people say, I just want to express from a personal perspective that in my experience, in those moments, when you are going through a depression so deep, it can be so incredibly painful that every breath and every movement and every action that you take feels physically painful. I would remember looking at the clock in the day, like at work, and the minutes just felt like they were going by so incredibly slowly every minute of every day that it felt like a physical pain is what I was physically feeling just to be alive and to go through each moment and to go through each movement. Now, again, I know a lot of people say that suicide is selfish because there are so many people out there who love you and care about you and don't want you to do this. And I do completely understand it from that perspective, especially watching someone like Sutton and her mother suffer, because they've lost someone, especially suffering in the way where it happened in the home. And that's an image that you're never going to get rid of. But I just want to say from the other side and the other perspective, sometimes your own pain is so much more than you being able to live just for somebody else. And again, I completely understand that there are people there that love you and would support you and be there for you if you continued on. I just want to explain the idea from the person who's in it that sometimes it just feels so, so, so painful that you just can't. Um, I know that that was a lot, and I'm actually surprised I was able to get through without crying. So I'm actually pretty proud of myself for that. That's just something that I wanted to express from my perspective. Okay, and then moving on to a different part of the episode that's a little bit later, we talked about Bose and Keeley still planning to have a baby together, but they haven't said I love you yet. Now, I find this so fascinating. So, this actually happened with my sister twice. She was dating a guy, and they were talking about moving in together, but they hadn't said I love you. And I was like, what are you talking about? There's like certain stages that you go through in a relationship. When you move in together, you're planning your life together. What do you mean you haven't said I love you yet? And she was like, I don't know. And then the same thing happened with the guy that she was just most recently with, who just broke up with her. I'm like, no, okay, maybe there isn't the same order for everybody with relationships. That totally makes sense, to each their own. But if you're going to make a lifetime commitment with someone, like having a baby, you got to make sure that you're in love first. Now, she does clarify she wants him to say it first, which I totally understand. And I also understand that she does love him. It would be very different if she didn't love him, but she was planning to have a kid with him. I'd be like, let's pump the brakes. But I don't know. I'm kind of with Dorit on being like, maybe you need to bring it up because it feels very weird to me to be making that kind of commitment to someone when you haven't made that kind of verbal commitment. Like, you gotta say it. I feel like you gotta say it. It's crazy. And then another part of this episode that was really interesting is Erica and Bose really telling Dorit what's up when it comes to PK. Because apparently Dorit had a conversation with PK recently where she felt like, I saw who he was again. This is the father of my kids. So I feel like kind of that anger has died down and I feel just better about where we are. But Bose and Erica remind her that no, he's just playing a game with you right now. You need to remember that. You need to put your dukes up. You need to, get yourself a divorce lawyer. He could go around and like scoop up every good divorce lawyer in town. And it's so true because you really never know someone until you go through something like this. It's sort of like Stacy from The Real Housewives of Potomac because her saying like, "Oh, my ex will never make sure that my daughter doesn't have any money." You never really know, right? And you never, especially with somebody hiding finances, things like that, you just really never know what's going on the back end or what someone is going to do to you if they're that angry. So I do think she has to protect herself and her children, given the way he's been acting. He's being unpredictable, and he's been unpredictable this whole time. Even if he was predictable, even if he was the same person this whole time, when you go through a divorce, it's like getting to know a whole new person. You're seeing a whole side of someone you've probably never seen before, and it is so important to make sure that you are safe. Okay, let's move on to Southern hospitality. Now, I don't have any news here, but I just wanted to do, again, a little mini recap on just what came out of last episode. So we have the gang in Vegas for Maddie's performance, and Grace Lilly, is supposed to come on stage with her to perform the song Poppin' It. Now, Grace Lilly is an hour late. She does end up making it for the song, but she doesn't apologize. She doesn't take any accountability. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we all have a friend like Grace Lilly. You all have a friend who you just can't really rely on that much, and you have lower expectations for that friend because you know they're unreliable. So in this sense, maybe if I were Maddie, I wouldn't have relied on her for something like this because it had a certain time and, there was an organization and there was everything that had to go into it. So if you have something that's really important that is time sensitive, maybe don't include Grace Lilly. But it just made me laugh because I feel like we all have a friend like that. And then when everyone was at dinner later on, everyone confronts Will about cheating on Emmy or this rumor about cheating on Emmy at law school. So Austin's girlfriend had heard this from someone. Lake brings it up at dinner. By the way, I'm loving Lake because she doesn't have like a ton of storyline right now, but she's sort of the one who's bringing up all the drama in the rumor. She's like, "What about the cheating? What about this? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the husband." That's Lake, right? She's just like, "Let's do this now. Let's bring up the drama." And what's so funny about Emmy in these situations is the way she loses it. And it made me sort of think about something that Ryan Bailey said in my episode with him last week, where he talks about everyone has to have their turn with the hot potato. And it's Emmy's turn for the hot potato, meaning her relationship is on blast this season. And if people are spreading a rumor about you and your relationship, that's what reality TV is about. We are here to talk about it. But she loses her mind, saying it's so unfair. She doesn't get a break. This is always happening to her. But we've had other seasons where it was all about Maddie and her relationship. Now Maddie's in a place where her relationship is in a good place. So it is your turn, Emmy. I'm sorry. This is a very Vanderpump Rules coded where like the first season it was Stassi and Jax fighting all the time. Then the second season, I think it was Katie and Tom. Then the third season, it was Katie and Kristen, right? Like everyone has to have their turn with the relationship hot potato, I feel like. So still, you guys get into Southern Hospitality. This is our new Vanderpump Rules. I'm really into this show. And I do think that these cheating rumors are true. I think that Emmy makes a concerted effort to just block things out. Like, it's actually pretty wild to watch. She won't even like listen to it. She won't, and she'll be like, "Where's the evidence?" And it's like, there usually isn't evidence of like people, of like your boyfriend having sex with somebody else. That's just not a thing. That usually entails evidence. But regardless, the fact that she won't even let her brain entertain it, I just find so interesting. She just shuts down and shuts off anytime anyone brings up anything about the status of her relationship or anything that could make her feel or anything that could take her off of like this perfect bubble that she feels like she's in. She's like, "Don't burst my love bubble," like the Teresa love bubble. She just refuses to let anyone get into that bubble. But like, honey, if there's something that might need to burst your bubble, I think you need to listen. But I think this is just going to be one of those situations where she'll just learn on her own. Like she'll either catch him cheating or she'll get her evidence, whatever that is. Okay, let's move on to the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So we haven't gotten a lot of news about them lately. The new season of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives should be airing within the next couple of months, but we just got word that Jennifer Affleck is pregnant. So she is pregnant with her third baby with her douchebag husband, Zach Affleck, who is not related to Ben Affleck, and that they said that this baby was a surprise but a blessing and yada yada yada. Those of you who watch the show recall that Zach Eflek is pretty controlling and a pretty horrible husband to Jennifer. I don't know where they're living or what their situation is right now because what we last saw in the show was that they were going to be moving to New York for him to go to medical school. So I don't really know what's going on with their family, where they're going to be living with this third child, but the more kids they have, the more I feel like she is tied to this insane man. She's done interviews where she has said that she does have a good understanding of the person that he is and that they are continuing to work on their relationship. And I hope so, right? Like at the end of the day, I hope so. I just hope that if he does end up being this awful and he doesn't end up changing in a way where he respects his wife and respects his children and respects their marriage, that I hope that she would leave. But from what we saw on the show, it doesn't really seem like she ever would. I mean, she said things like, "No one has ever loved me as much as he loves me." But honey, you're like so young, like you would have had one relationship maybe in high school prior to this. So she sees him in this really idealistic or very like, she really looks up to him. And I just hope that throughout her being on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, where she's getting a lot more independence, she's getting a lot more opportunities on her own, I really hope that she realizes that as an individual, she can make it if she decides to no longer be with this man, with three kids or not. That's just my thought. Okay. Kardashian news, which I don't normally do, and this isn't really Kardashian, but it's sort of like Kardashian adjacent. So we recently got word that Kanye West and his quote unquote wife, Bianca Censori, were getting a divorce. Now, I swear I heard that already a while ago. So I was confused by this news. Then I also was like, are they even married? Because isn't that why we always put the quotes around wife? Because we're not even sure whether they were married or not. So I put this down on the list to talk about today. And then we got word that they actually aren't getting a divorce. So Kanye has debunked that rumor. But regardless of that, news has actually come out that they actually don't have a prenup. So that's pretty interesting. So we do not know whether or not they are actually married, whether they are getting a divorce or not. But the prenup thing is really interesting. First of all, very stupid on his part, but kind of brilliant for her because that man has more money than God. So if they are really married and they do really get a divorce, good for her. We know so little about this woman. I maybe could have done more research into her before this episode, but honestly, I mean, we saw them last week at whatever awards it was, the Billboard Music Awards or some sort of awards, the Grammys, something was happening last week. They show up, she's wearing like she was naked. She's wearing like such a sheer dress. Then we find out they weren't even invited and were escorted out. She has been walking around naked during their entire relationship, and people have been worried as to whether she's like being controlled by him. It's kind of insane. We've never heard her speak, not to my knowledge. And it's kind of terrifying the way he parades her around as like this naked doll. So if they are getting a divorce, good. And if they have no prenup, good. Because if he is controlling this woman and she does find a way to get out of it, at least she can get a bunch of money out of it for the therapy she's probably going to need for being in a relationship with this psychotic man. And I do also just want to say how dangerous he is as a general human being, because while he may be an amazing artist, and I do understand that he has mental health issues, the things that he's saying and doing are so dangerous because he has such a large following. So even though he's mentally unwell, he's clearly not being, or he's clearly not getting the proper treatment that he should be getting. And that is causing him, or maybe it's not, I don't know if it's related or not, but he's constantly out there being anti-Semitic, saying horrifying things. And because he has such a large following and because people still believe him, it can make people transition their thinking into hatred kind of thinking. Because if one of the most powerful people in the world is telling you to think a certain way, a lot of people will go ahead and think that certain way. So that's my point. I just think he's a very dangerous human being, and I really hope he gets on the right medication that he needs to be on or take the medications that he should be taking. I very much respect that he has bipolar, but he just seems like a very dangerous human being in the way he puts himself out there and the things that he says in the public domain. Okay, let's move on to Bachelor news. So, as you will recall a little while ago, Matt James and Rachel Kirkconnell broke up. Matt James was the first African American bachelor, and Rachel Kirkconnell and him were together for 4 years. He posted that weird sort of biblical breakup while they were away on vacation together. Then she ended up on the Call Her Daddy podcast, and it sort of turned into a nothing burger in the sense that they broke up for sort of like normal relationship reasons. But over the weekend, I just want to say that Matt James was seen with another woman at Hillstone on February the 9th. I took a look at the picture. I mean, what do I know? I don't know this man, but it just didn't seem like the kind of girl he would date. And I don't mean that in any like negative sense. It just didn't seem like that kind of vibe. Like maybe this was more so a colleague. I don't know. But when Rachel was going to do the Call Her Daddy podcast, it was either that day or the day before. There was also a Dumois blind saying that Matt James was seen with Rachel Kirkconnell. And then she came forward saying that wasn't me. So he was seen with someone. So again, I don't know much about this guy, but I really don't put it past him to start dating already. Like if he's been already been seen with a couple of girls, I don't think that's that crazy. It seemed like from the Call Her Daddy interview, it seemed like he might have been checked out of that relationship for a while. But I think we are going to keep seeing sightings of Matt James with different girls until he finds his next girlfriend. And then we got some news about Katie Thurston. So Katie Thurston was the Bachelorette some years back. Her story was that she wanted to pick Greg Grippo, and he kind of came at her near the end of the season and was like, "You need to tell me that you love me. I need to hear you say that." And she ended up trying to, convince him that it was him and that she wanted him without saying those words because she really wanted to reserve that for the end. But he sort of gaslit her into saying that she had to say it now. So he ended up leaving. She ended up picking Blake Moynes, who's actually from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, who actually met a couple months back at one of those Jackson Tom events because he's one of Lori Kay's clients. Nice guy, but they didn't end up working out. And then she sort of went into the influencer stuff, and then she ended up doing stand-up comedy, and now she's engaged to a guy named Jeff Dye, another stand-up comedian. But she came out a couple of days ago saying that she has recently been diagnosed with cancer. So I'm going to read her caption from her Instagram post. It says, "Life update. I have breast cancer. Yesterday I saw all the couples post their Valentine's Day celebrations. I felt envious if I'm being honest. Jeff took me to Hawaii, and after we were going to travel the world before planting roots together in NYC finally. But instead, my V Day was spent coordinating a place to live as I have to go back to LA for more testing and treatment. I used my morning to figure out insurance for NYC and laws on pre existing conditions. I scheduled appointments for another biopsy, fertility, and mental health surgery, as well as meeting with my team to discuss the overall treatment plan, which will include chemo. I experienced a range of emotions over the past 2 weeks: despair, anger, sadness, denial, and then strength, purposeful, ready. I cried a lot. I tried to even make a video instead of this post, and I couldn't. But one thing I did early on was to search other stories like mine. Other young women with breast cancer, invasive ductal carcinoma, mastectomy, pregnancy after breast cancer, all of these stories help. So I intend to be the same for others. This this is day one of sharing and is going to be a long one. This first step of acceptance of my reality was the hardest, but I'm ready to fight this. And I saved the best for last. To my extraordinary husband to be, and then she tagged him, I don't even know how I'd do this without you. The selfless love that you smother me in is beyond anything I imagined and I'd be blessed with. I love you to the fullest in this lifetime and the next. So that is very upsetting. Again, it's so good for her that she has close family, close friends, and an amazing supportive partner who's going to be there for her. One other thing I forgot to mention about Katie Thurston is that a few months back, she came forward and said that she had been raped. I don't know when the rape occurred, but she really disclosed in her Instagram post all the different sort of emotions that she went through and all the different sort of supports that she had received. I bring this up only to say that Katie Thurston has really gone through it, right? From her time on The Bachelor, then The Bachelorette, um, and now her health struggles, and then her struggles being sexually assaulted. I mean, she's been through a lot, but you can see in this post how positive she's still trying to be, and I think that's really special and that's really something. I also think it's a very interesting thing to sort of put this out there, especially if you're going through a journey. I've never gone through cancer myself, but I think there's something positive to be said for putting all your stages out there for people, especially people who are going through it themselves. Like maybe if there was someone who was going through the same thing, they might feel supported or like they're not alone if they're seeing Katie post the different stages and the treatments that she's getting and the support that she's receiving. It may just make that person feel like they're not alone and that they want to follow along that journey with her because they feel like they're going through that journey together. So I don't even think it's a bad thing. I think it's a really new and interesting thing in this social media world to share all those aspects of yourself, things that we typically keep very private, especially things like health. But I can definitely see the benefit of sharing your health journeys with other people so that they feel like either they're going through it with you or like they're not alone if they're going through it themselves. Okay, let's get into Southern Charm. So just over the weekend, Craig was on the Housewives Nightcap podcast and he was doing like one of these appearances in Atlanta. So that's where he did the podcast. Now, even though I believe he filmed the Tamron Hall show before he did this podcast, I'm just gonna go kind of in order. He seemed a little more demure, mindful in this episode. You could tell he was sort of fatigued about talking about him and Paige, and it came up again, though, obviously, in the podcast. He was asked, and he was just like, breakups happen. It's okay. It happens to everyone. I'm okay. And these are the things I want to do moving forward. But something interesting. Oh, and he didn't say a single bad word about Paige, which is something I want to keep mentioning because, we get this pickup scene, and I talked about this on my Saturday episode if you want to hear my deep dive into all things Summer House and all the things we've heard so far. But, we have this pickup scene, like we know, for Summer House, where Paige says, he's dead to me. He wouldn't debunk the cheating rumors. I caught him texting two bitches during the course of our relationship. So, he's still hasn't said a bad word about her. The worst thing he said is she's a liar for saying our breakup was mutual, but obviously he was saying that just with like hurt. So it's just coming off very differently from like a PR perspective or for like an optics perspective. He's just doing all of these interviews where he's praising her, saying that being in the relationship was a really great thing for him, that he's changed a lot because of it, and he has nothing bad to say about it. So this is just something I went into a little bit more on my Saturday episode. But something interesting that he mentioned was about his alcohol use. So he said that, actually, I'll play the clip from Housewives Nightcap. Why don't I do that? so that you guys can get a sense of what I'm talking about.
From a family and a background that if you aren't drinking as much, it means it's because you have an alcohol problem. Apparently, Austin thought I wasn't drinking anymore for like a PR thing. And it wasn't until, fortunately, you'll get to see later in the season that we finally talk about that. And I was like, what? I thought you knew if I wasn't drinking that much anymore, it's because I was doing it, for my health and relationship. So you'll see a very funny communication synchronicity. No, that's not even a word.
So obviously we know that Craig had an Adderall problem in the past, but I just didn't really know that his alcohol problem was such a big deal or such a big problem for him, but that seems to be what he's alluding to here. So what's confusing for me is why the Summer House cast are sort of making it out like it's this bad thing, like it's something that Paige did to, protect Craig so that he now owes her in terms of the cheating rumors. So you have Carl saying on the Vile Files that Paige was covering up for Craig, and you have Sierra saying that on Watch What Happens Live. But again, if she was covering up for him for things related to like alcohol, then it sounds like he had a problem. So I don't really like the narrative that they're putting out there. And also, this is something I mentioned in my Saturday episode. If she was covering up for him, that was a decision that she made or a decision that they made together. I don't feel like that means that he now owes her forever because, first of all, that was during their relationship when they had a relationship. Now they no longer have a relationship. So I just want to go back to the whole I really don't think Craig owes Paige for these cheating rumors. I don't think that he has to debunk them when he never started them or never said them. And I am not team anybody. I just, on this thing, now that they've created this need for sides, because now it's this whole thing about whether he should or shouldn't have debunked the cheating rumors. No, I still don't think he should have or feels the need to. One thing on the whole Paige and Joe D'Amelio thing, like I mentioned in my Saturday episode, apparently there may be some DMs that are coming out about Joe D'Amelio's ex. So I've talked to a few people who have, allegedly talked to this Rachel Durante, who used to date Joe D'Amelio, and allegedly, what's her name? Paige and Hannah slid into Joe's DMs at the end of the summer, and then Rachel broke up with Joe D'Amelio in October. Apparently, yeah, all we know is that these texts were inappropriate. I don't really know what they are. I mean, what's inappropriate is subjective, and what I assume happened is, I mean, I don't really know who this person is or how he's related to anybody, but what I'm assuming is if it was Paige and Hannah, that it was very like innocuous and sort of nothing. And then maybe it grew to turn into something like any relationship does, right? Like you can develop a friendship with someone and then it can turn into something more later on. And that's probably what happened here. So I don't know if these DMs are going to come out, but it sounds like they exist. And it sounds like Paige was speaking with this guy for at least 6 months. I keep hearing this number 6 months, and a lot of people have spoken to Rachel Durante directly, and this is the number that we're getting confirmed. So I really don't know what's going to happen there. And I just want to mention the whole thing about the photos because there's this whole debacle online about whether Joe D'Amelio is Paige's boyfriend because they're holding hands. Now, I know this is going to sound silly, but I just want to put this story out there because it's just so speaks home to me. So, when I was in my mid-20s, I went on a date with this guy who I met online. One quick, nothing date, and it was just like coffee. We didn't kiss, nothing like that. And then he asked me on a second date. We went to a movie, and he tried to hold my hand during the movie, and I thought it was so weird because I felt like I'm only going to hold hands with someone who's my boyfriend. Like to me, it felt like so much more intimate. Like we hadn't even kissed yet. I didn't even know his last name, so it felt so weird to me to be holding hands. Like in my mind, I know you guys are gonna come at me, and there's gonna be a debate about this, but like I I want to only hold hands with someone who's my boyfriend. Like we're holding hands because we're going somewhere together because we're boyfriend and girlfriend. Like in a way, to me, it's almost more intimate than kissing, or in that sense, anyways, in my particular case, I felt it was weird that we hadn't kissed yet. Like it felt weird that we were holding hands, but we had never kissed. I don't know. Again, to each their own. This whole idea of whether they're boyfriend and girlfriend is semantics. Okay, like maybe they're not boyfriend and girlfriend, maybe they've never had the title. But think about what Lindsay Hubbard said the other day, where in the season premiere episode of Summer House, where she's like, "Oh, me and Turner never had a conversation about whether we were like official or not. We just said I love you." So, it's semantics at the end of the day. He's had his dick in her. We can all agree. Joe D'Amelio has had his dick in Paige. I think we can agree. So that's that. Now, we finally have Craig on the Tamron Hall show. So I'm going to play you guys a clip from that and then give you the highlights.
I think if you were to ask her as things calm down, she would probably take that back. Because the one thing, yeah, I mean, it didn't happen.
Well, does it hurt, though, to be seen as a quote-unquote cheater?
Well, of course. I mean, it's just anytime your character is challenged, especially things that you're proud of, it's not great, but that's the life that we live on television. Like I said, you can only control yourself. But no, I won't date someone unless I can see myself marrying them, because there's two outcomes if you date. You either break up or you get married. And people don't like hearing that, but that is the truth. And so if you're staying with someone, yeah, no. And so, I was, and I don't think you should settle. Like, I don't think you should date someone unless you don't want to date anyone else. And, when I met Paige, she was my one, and so, no, I had everything that I wanted, in that relationship. No, but that's there really wasn't ugly or bad, and there wasn't infidelity.
Relationships.
So again, says nothing bad about her, and he says that she would take it back. So that's interesting. So these are the highlights. So he denies the cheating. He believes Paige, like in the clip, said would take back the comment as soon as things calm down. He calls Paige the one and wouldn't date someone unless it's leading to marriage. He's saying there's no infidelity, and he would have lost himself if he stayed with her. So I wonder what he means by that she would take it back. Like, is it a full-on lie? Like, that's the weird thing. And it's going to be months before we find out because, like I said in my Saturday episode, that pickup scene from Summer House, that will air in the finale. And we just got the first episode of Summer House. So it's going to be months, which is why I feel like Craig did this interview because he didn't want there to be speculation for months about whether he cheated. But is he saying that she straight up lied? Because that's not a good look for Paige. And again, this is something I said in my Saturday episode. I think she's spiraling. I think from a PR perspective, she's really worried about her appearance, and how this all looks. And again, I don't even really think she cheated. I think she maybe just had a texting conversation with a guy who it eventually turned into something more. But I think she's just really worried about how it looks because again, she's the one who has created this war about this cheating rumor. If she hadn't have spoken on it twice, if she hadn't have asked Craig to put it down twice, let's just let it go. But the fact that she couldn't let it go, which led to this pickup scene, which led to her accusing him of cheating, which led to him denouncing it in another interview, which gonna lead to God knows what, God knows what. So I kind of hope this very normal breakup dies down eventually. I hope we don't hear about it again until that pickup scene finally airs, but I highly doubt that. I'm sure Paige will come back with something. So I just want to do a super mini recap of Southern Charm from last week. So the gang goes to Barbados to visit Sienna, and I just want to make fun of the irony of this episode and this entire cast trip. Now, Southern Charm trips have historically been a little disjointed in the sense of who's been invited. I've seen it, even last summer, it was so hilarious for Madison and Austin to be on a trip together, which we are now seeing again, but now it feels a bit better because now they're friends. But what was so funny about this is Taylor's there, right? Not only is Taylor not friends with anybody, Taylor's going on a trip for Shep's girlfriend, to visit Shep's girlfriend. That's just so ridiculous. So everyone on this trip is so ridiculous. Craig and Austin aren't getting along, yet they're on a trip together. And, I'm always talking about how I'm a normal person, but the idea that Sienna is only in this just to be on TV or just because it would make her grandmother happy for her grandmother's fan club is so bizarre to me that I couldn't understand that someone would do that. And I know she went through Whitney and then Shep and all of that, but to see it in real life, to see her so despondent from him and so uninterested, If you guys want to watch shows where there's one partner so uninterested in the other, you really have to check out 90 Day Fiancé because this so reminded me of that. It reminded me of someone who very much didn't want to be with the other person and is only doing it for the visa. It was just so bizarre. And then there was this moment at the end of the episode where Shep and Sienna unite and he's getting changed and she leaves the room and she's like, I'll give you space. And he's like, oh my God. Like he looked so horrified. And it's so sad to watch because I mean it's just sad for anyone to, be treated that way, but it really is just so much of a taste of his own medicine. Like for years, Shep has treated women like crap and has put them in the friend zone and has put them in these situationship relationships. And now the fact that this woman is turning it around on him, he cannot handle it. His brain is going wild. He absolutely cannot fathom that someone does not love him. So now I think he's almost in love with her because she's not in love with him. Like, I don't think he's actually in love with this girl. I think he's just crazy about the idea that she doesn't love him to the point where he will do anything in his power to try to make it happen, despite how embarrassing this seems to look. Like, that's the only explanation I can have here as to why he's going this far. But it's funny to watch, so I'll just say that. I just want to do one other little thing before we go. A new little thing called What I'm Watching, because I do watch other things that I don't report on, but I just want to let you guys know what else is out there. So there's a new season of Love is Blind out on Netflix. There's 6 episodes out. It's not good. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's one of my favorite shows. I love when it comes out, and it's just really, really boring. So I just want to let you guys know that. There is a new season of 90 Day Fiancé, just mentioned, one of my favorite shows. I have not watched the first episode yet, but it's always good. It's just one of those shows that to have on in the background. It's such trash. It's so much fun. And you'll learn a lot about the visa process, and you'll learn a lot about other countries. Married at First Sight is one that I'm watching right now. I've been watching it from the beginning. It's like, oh God, like 17, 18, 19 seasons in maybe. I stopped watching a couple seasons ago because it got really bad, but this season is really, really good. There's like a wife swap situation, so I would definitely dive into that if I were you. That's on Lifetime. Scamanda, that is a 4 episode series about a woman. It's a documentary series about a woman who faked cancer. It was a really, really popular podcast turned into a documentary. I've watched 2 episodes of that so far. I think 3 have aired out of the 4. That's really, really good. The Real Housewives of Potomac reunion, the first part aired yesterday. It was okay. I think we're going to get more in the second part. All we got in the first part that was really new is a video from Karen where she did admit to drinking and taking antidepressants at the same time. And she thanked a lot of people except for Wendy, who seemed very upset that Karen just didn't really appreciate her. And there'll be one more episode of that, so I think we'll get a lot more in the second one. And apparently there's a new documentary about Gabby Petito, which I'm sure you guys have all heard about that murder. That's on Netflix, and that's 3 episodes. So that is some other stuff to check out. And other than that, I will see you on Saturday. Love you, BB. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator Podcast in partnership with Hurrdat Media. You can watch full-length videos on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at the Bravo Investigator. If you enjoy the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.